Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Welcome everybody to Nightlight. So glad you could join us. I want to thank Ken Quiethawk for his amazing intro. You can find him and his lovely wife on the internet. They are native storytellers, and I urge you absolutely to Google him and learn a little bit about how history was kept before writing was invented. It's a fabulous, fabulous website. He and his wife have done an amazing job of preserving history and enlightening others to how history could be kept in, I think, perhaps a better way. So tonight, Yay Team, we have Mary Joyce with us. She is the editor of the amazing website, skyshipsovercashiers.com. I urge you all to please check it out, but after the show, please. It's an amazing website. She has been trained as a real news reporter, and what she has done with the website is to pick up stories that, you know, the traditional newscasters aren't covering, and help to enlighten the rest of us to things that are falling through the cracks that are not only phenomenally fascinating, but with her website you can be sure that she has double-checked and triple-checked out everything that's up there. You will not find anything there that is just a piece of conspiracy theory or anything like that. She checks out her material thoroughly. And she has on the website as well a decade of archives that are fascinating. You can actually, if you're going to dive into her website, have Kleenex and a snack handy, because I promise you, you won't be able to get through it in half an hour or even more. The site is just full of phenomenally fascinating information that she has thoroughly investigated. And we're going to be talking tonight about some amazing things that have happened on her website. Certainly, we're going to be talking about some of these hidden cities that are becoming more and more apparent in Antarctica as the ice is melting. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Mary, and I'm so excited about tonight because this looks like it's fascinating material.
Well, it's a lot of different things. You know, everybody's concerned about global warming, and rightly so, because we're losing the coastlines and, you know, weather is not moving in the same ways and we're having extremes. Everybody is somewhat aware of that, if not totally aware. But there is one good thing that's happening during all this climate change, and that is the ice and the glaciers around the world are melting. And they have been hiding secrets that go back sometimes millions of years. And some of it's just like the structures from ancient civilizations, but there's also what you might call more recent things, which, well, we'll just kind of start with the hard stuff and get back to the other. We've discovered two things in Antarctica, one in September and one this month, where the ice is melting, and you can see ancient structures of cities in two different locations appearing out of the melting ice. And, you know, I know that none of us can really think in terms of, you know, millions of years, but Antarctica was once ice-free, and there are fossils of vegetation that you would find like in a jungle in Antarctica down beneath the ice. So it once wasn't the way it is now. But for anywhere between 23 and 34 million years ago, depending on which scientist you're talking to, it's been totally covered in ice. So things that are appearing now are at least 23 to 34 million years old. That beats anything in the world. The oldest thing that I'm aware of off the top of my head are some of the remains of ancient structures in South Africa, and they're like 100,000 years. Well, 100,000 years compared to 34 million years is like a blink. And so this is truly phenomena that's appearing out of the ice. And these are, like I said, postings that have been recent. And so if you go to the website, skyshipsovercachers.com, on the right-hand side, we always have the most recent postings. And there's two there about these ancient cities that we've found, so you can find them quite easily. One is called Ancient City Emerging Now from the Ice of Antarctica, and the other one is, I don't know what the other one is, but they both have to do with these ancient cities emerging. Just the sheer number of years is mind-boggling.
Yeah, and you know, I looked at them, and there's also a YouTube that was put up by Mary Hall, that you know, her aide that narrates it, and he goes into it even further, and looking into it, you can see the squared off structures. You can see what were buildings or walls or structures, and you know, he talks about, you know, how I think he mentions Pangaea, that it might have been formed before the plates separated. You know, I'm not sure I agree with that, because I know that we've had pole shifts and stuff, and at one time Antarctica was almost by the equator with the pole shifts. So I don't, you know, and there's no telling which theory is more appropriate, to be honest with you. But you can see squared off buildings and roads and all sorts of stuff there. It's just, it's phenomenal.
And the one that you're talking about, Mary Hall, who I've mentioned to your listeners before, is somebody who had a stroke at a very early age. It was before she was 50, and she almost didn't make it. She has revived her brain works pretty well, but she doesn't. It's more difficult for her to communicate. So he will narrate the videos for her, and the link to that video is in the article called "Ancient City Emerging Now from Antarctica's Ice." And she has the patience. Like, I have an aerial photo of the area she was looking into, and it just looks like little cracks or slivers in the ice. Well, she took time to go down and to really zoom in into those cracks. Well, this is where these cities are. And this one city that she found, and she found it in September, looks like a walled city. I think that's the one I'm getting. No, it isn't. That's the other one. I get them all mixed up because there's two metropolitan areas that were found. But she's been really diligent. She was looking for signs of ancient life in Antarctica since May, and she finally found it in September.
Well, I mean, it's so clear that, you know, in nature there aren't right angles, and in these photographs that you have, I mean, you can see squares. You can see the fact that they're right angles all over the place, and nature just doesn't do right angles. So
that's right.
it's phenomenal, and happily, it's going to continue to melt because, we're in a warming cycle. It doesn't, and this wall that goes around,
Yeah, that's in the more recent article. It's closer to the top, and it's called "Ancient Walled City Emerges from Antarctica's Ice." And it looks like a city or a community was built with this. It could be a dam, it could be a fortress wall, it could be a bridge, but it's very noticeable. And it's broken. Well, one segment of it that I show in one photograph is 570 feet long. This is like the wall with the structures, or the, I would call housing, next to it. Well, then there's a break in the wall, and if you measure and it picks up again. So if you measure the whole thing, it's over 1,600 feet in length. So we're not just talking about itty-bitty things that you can just dismiss as something else.
No, and when you look at you have a lovely picture of the globe in Antarctica, and you have a red dot where this structure was found, and it's right where you would imagine a city would be. It's like us. Most of our population is gathered around the coastlines, and this is right by the coastline. It looks like there's even a water inlet of some sort there. So it makes
it does look
sense.
Like a bay. That's a good thing you pointed out.
Yeah, and so it to me, it's like, I can't wait to see what more there is there, because, as you've said, so much of our antiquity only goes back to the last flood and the last ice age, and then you don't know what was beyond that, and there is now a lot of research going into the fact that obviously before the last ice age, before the comet hit, there were civilizations that we know nothing about that left remnants here, and this goes back way before that. So, I can't wait to see. I mean, of course, now the question is, okay, this has shown up. Is any investigation being done? I mean, this appears to be, naked ground, so to speak. So, of course, there's no way of telling because they don't notify you about archaeologists going and looking at this stuff. But it seems to me that this begs research of some sort.
Well, what we did, or actually what I did for Mary, the gal who's disabled, is I wrote an article, an extension of what we've had on the web, and I sent it both to researchers who have done archaeological kind of things down in Antarctica. I've also sent it to publications, archaeological publications, where they are very supposedly interested in this kind of stuff. So far, we haven't gotten any responses from them. I don't know if we will or not. It's very, very hard. Can't tell you why for sure, but it's very, very hard to get this into mainstream publications. And I honestly think that this kind of information is being blocked for whatever reason. I do not know. But on this story about the walled city, I have the coordinates, so anybody can copy and paste them into their Google map or Google Earth and see it for themselves. But here is something that makes you think that they don't want us to know about it, because after I posted these pictures on the website and I go back to the Google Earth, all those images are more blurred than when I first saw them. But I've got images of what I saw originally.
I put it into Google Earth and it brought up someplace in Utah, so I can't figure out what I did wrong. Yeah, I mean, I copied and pasted it into Google Earth and it sent me to Utah. So I may have done something wrong. I'm not a great techie, but I did cut and paste exactly what you have, and I put it into the Google Earth site, and I ended up in Utah.
Well, I will have to go explore that again, because the last time I saw it, it was just blurry.
Well, I have another question. You've got a picture of a globe with a little red dot on it that is of Antarctica. Now, right after World War II, we had Project High Jump with Admiral Byrd and everything. Where was it that they were going? It wasn't this area in Antarctica,
No, it wasn't.
I don't believe.
No, it wasn't, but I can't, off the top of my head, I can't pinpoint the location. It's more into the interior, as I understand it.
Yeah, and I think more southerly. I'm not sure, but I know that this is not an area that either the Nazis were looking at or Project High Jump was looking at. So this is a completely other area of this amazing continent that begs the need for research and investigation. And because of the way you look at these pictures, it's there's not ice and there's not snow on it. So that would, and that you can see shadows. So this is a large wall on the wall part one that you're talking about. It casts quite a shadow. So it's got to be huge. I mean, kind of Great Wall of China.
It's not just a little cabin in the woods, for sure. It's definitely some kind of a town or a city. And the one that Mary first found, that she first found, it's very organic. It looks like it's been, I don't see a river, but you know how a city will follow a river and it takes on that kind of shape? Well, the city that she found has that organic shape in a very noticeable way, just like we have cities that evolve here along, today along rivers.
Well, it does look as though there is a water source there, too, so that and I'm talking about the city that Mary found. It does look like there's a water source there, and when I was looking at the video that they put up on YouTube, it does look as though population was gathered around the shore of a water supply. And he was pointing out square shapes that were pyramids or ziggurats. I'm not, again, that's a leap of faith, but I'd make the same link. You have a square building, and what else could it possibly be than a pyramid or a ziggurat? But it's phenomenal when you look at, they take it in a lot closer than your pictures do, so they really blow it up, and you can see where she's dropped pins to indicate that there's something else there too. And the amount of intense focus and concentration that it took to find this is
goodness.
phenomenal.
I mean, you and I are our minds are just too active and our bodies are still too active, but she's kind of trapped. And so she is really able to spend time really, really searching where I probably would run out of patience, because just exploring into these what look like slivers or cracks in the ice and then finding what's down in those slivers and cracks, that's not an easy find. And she's been working on it since May. So May, June, July, August, that's 5 months of searching before she found something.
Well, yeah, and when you look at the picture, because you have a picture up of what these cracks look like, and I would have just zoomed over them.
Me too.
And yet in this picture, there you see the cracks, and then to the left of the cracks you see, snow piled up and stuff like that, which would, once you take the time to look at it, which would suggest that there's something else there because it's darker, it's in different shapes, and it takes a mind that is so focused on detail that it's unbelievable. But once you stare at this a length of time, you begin to see, no, there's something else there. It's that dark has to be land, and if land is there, then what's there? I mean, it's not something that it is. You'll breeze right over it. I mean, how she does this, I don't know. She's an amazing person to be able to.
I feel real fortunate that we've connected with her, because she's provided a number of things that we have been able to put on the website, and I always credit her. And the one that she found in September, I've got the link on that article, so, it takes you right to the video that she posted. So anyhow, we do our best. But
Wow.
this whole thing has really opened up an entirely new area of study. We now have something called glacial archaeology, and
Wow.
there's actual journal of glacial archaeology that was first issued in 2014, and all of this was actually inspired by a 53,000-year-old mummy who is known as Otzi the Iceman. And he was found by some German tourists when they were hiking in the Alps, in northern Italy, and they found this mummy coming out from this melting ice. He proved to be one of the most interesting mummies that you could think of because, first of all, he was murdered, and they found the wound in his shoulder that hit an artery, and then he was hit on the back of the head, and he had a hematoma. So he clearly was murdered, and he had just eaten just before that happened, so they know what he ate. He had wheat and red deer and ibex, but they were able to diagnose his DNA. Well, that's the wrong word, but they studied his DNA. They found out that his father's side went back. I think his father's side went back to really Italy, some of the islands off of Italy, and he was surrounded by over 400 artifacts. So just imagine what this one mummy.
Well, wait, was this? Now, I could be thinking of somebody else, but I do remember reading about and seeing about. He had tattoos.
Yes, we had. Now, you may have read it somewhere else. I did put it on the website not that long ago. It's still under the latest top 20 stories, so you can find it real easily.
Yeah,
but
I think I saw it. I saw it. I think like on the History Channel. There was a whole thing on how they were able to discern and his clothing, even and his little toolkit that he had with him. I mean, it was amazing, and you stop and you think, am I with the same mummy?
Very likely. I mean, I didn't discover this man. His mummy was found in 91, and he's actually in a museum in Italy now. And it sounds like a strange term, but he's referred to as the oldest wet mummy in the world. So they have to keep him in a special cold cell at the museum to keep him continuously preserved. I found his shoes. I found his shoes fascinating. It was like the front part of it was like with leather, and then he had cords, and then it looks like a bird's nest. The inside of it is padded with grass.
Now, you're calling it a mummy, but to me a mummy is somebody that's been, I think of Egyptian mummification. He was just frozen solid, wasn't he?
Yes, he was, but he's still a mummy.
Okay. So my definition of mummy has to change.
Yeah, and he's a wet mummy as opposed to a dry mummy that you would find in Egypt, but he's nevertheless a mummy.
Okay.
But they even were able to figure out. He knew how tall he was. He was 5'2". He was about 46 years old. He had 61 tattoos. He had brown eyes. Apparently, there was a lot of pain in his life because he had several ribs that had been broken, and his nose had been broken. And my goodness, he had intestinal parasites, Lyme disease, arthritis, and heart disease. I mean, the man really had a hard life. But we got a picture of his shoe. We have a picture of his dagger and the little sheath that he kept the dagger in, and his copper axe. It's just a wealth of information going back to the the Stone Age, and technically the Neolithic time period. But going 53,000 years or 5,300 years back in history is pretty good, not compared to what we're finding in Antarctica, but compared to our normal ancient history, it's quite remarkable.
Well, I just lately have become more and more fascinated with pre-Diluvian stuff, because it just seems to me that there obviously was probably many civilizations pre-Diluvian, and it's kind of like, I want to go back that far. I want to go back, and see what before the flood and that ice age, what was there here, and this. I mean, if you take a look at the cycle of ice ages and things like that we've had, this discovery predates all of that because it goes
predates
back that
everything.
Far.
You can take the oldest pyramid, the ancient ruins in South Africa, Stonehenge. Those are like yesterday compared to 34 million years ago. I mean, there's just no comparison. And it's mind-boggling, and I wish that kind of information would get out to the greater audience out there in the world. Well,
that said, there is one other thing that I'm curious about, if that's true, and this clearly, I mean, was a civilization of some sort there. There's no doubt about it, and it was architecturally advanced because there are whole bunches of right angles there, so they had to have constructed structures of some sort. So that says technology. But you look at something like that and you wonder, okay, if it's that old, I'm a germaphobe, so I'm wondering, whatever diseases or bugs or whatever that they had at that time frame, would they be defrosting as well, and could that be a danger to the rest of the planet?
I doubt that it would overtake the planet like COVID has done. I don't foresee anything like that. But some of the ancient things can be revived. I know I don't know if they're doing this or if they're only talking about it, but they have found, I'll call it a mastodon. It's some kind of ancient-looking elephant. And they've been able to get, I guess, the appropriate DNA, and they either have or they are contemplating having an elephant from today carry that being to birth. So, we are living in a sci-fi world now.
Well, yeah, no doubt. But if you start to populate the world, the planet with, if you bring the dinosaurs back, I mean, this is definitely, I don't want to see Tyrannosaurus rexes, re-brought back. But unfortunately, science is so damn crazy that they would do that. But this culture, whatever it was, had to have left, if there are sites there, there have to be artifacts, and if there are artifacts, there has to be a story, and a story going back that many millions of years should be a fascinating one.
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. But even the more recent things, there's an article that I've done that, let me see if it'll be posted by the weekend. And the title of it is Incan Children, the Best Preserved Mummies in the World. And that's like ancient history too, but, again, not compared to Antarctica. These are 3 children that were sacrificed to the volcano by the Incans. And, their clothing's preserved, their hair, their face, their skin, everything is preserved. I mean, you can see it real clearly. And so with that posting, which again will be up by the weekend, I've got 6 photos with that one. And the main one was like a young teenager. And according to the Spanish invaders, they said that the Incan people would go out and find a very attractive young girl, and then they would, it's almost like fatten her up, but treat her special for about a year before they would make a sacrifice to the volcano. And they could tell from her DNA that she had had a regular peasant's diet, which would be like potato-based. And but the last year of her life, she ate meat. She ate corn or maize, and they gave her alcohol and they gave her cocoa, or cocoa, whatever. And so she would just be perfect to appease the volcano. My understanding, and I'm not sure I have the full picture on this, I think that they depended so much on the water from the glaciers at the top of this mountain or volcanic mountain, which is like over 22,000 feet in height or elevation. And sometimes, I guess it wouldn't provide as much water as they needed. So with this primitive thinking, they needed to appease the gods so that the water would continue to come. There may have been other reasons for the sacrifices. That might not have been the only reason. But from what I've read so far, that is a possibility for one of the reasons. And it's, she was treated pretty well.
Where was this located?
It's on the border of Chile and Argentina.
Because, when you say sacrifice to a volcano, you think of throwing somebody into hot lava. Quite obviously, this didn't happen.
No, they were buried up at the top point of it. Not buried, they were like encircled with stones. And, of course, at that elevation, that's a quick freeze. So just, they were really perfectly preserved because of it.
Well, knowing that
they figured that they called her the Maiden of the Mountain, of that particular mountain, and they figured that she probably died fairly peacefully because it was so cold, it was such high elevation, and she had alcohol and cocoa in her system, so it may not have been the worst possible sacrificial death. There was also a little boy and a little girl that were also sacrificed. They were between the ages of 4 and 7, and he apparently had a lot of distress before he died, because there were signs of the distress. Plus, there was vomit on his clothes, so his demise was considerably worse. But they had silver and gold little statues and other things that were buried with these children, and you can see some of them in the photos. It's quite amazing what condition that they are in. Again, they're the best preserved mummies in the world. So that'll be coming up by the weekend.
Have they dated them? Have they carbon dated them, or?
Well, they know the time of the Incan civilization, and so they're at least 500 years old, which sounds like nothing after we started the conversation at the top. But it also gives you an insight into the Incan civilization. Sometimes we put some of these civilizations on some kind of pedestal, like they built these great pyramids and they did this and they did that. But this shows how superstitious and how cold-hearted that civilization also was.
Well, cold-hearted. I hate to say it, but I mean, it was part of their religion. It was part of their practice. So that, as you said, I mean, the Aztecs had something very similar, where it was either the Aztecs or the Incas. I forget which. To me, they're the same, but I know they're in different places. So. But they had the same type of thing where people were selected, and for a year they were treated very well, and then they were sacrificed to the gods, and it was an honor. So, I mean, nobody's going to convince me that I'm going to be treated like a queen for a year and then I'm going to be killed. That is not an honor to me. But
no.
In their society, it was.
You kind of have to wonder, though, if the children were really feeling honored in any way whatsoever. But
no, probably not. They probably didn't understand what was happening. Hopefully, but you've opened up here with Antarctica a whole new. My goodness, they say the final frontier is space. I don't think so. I mean, we got another frontier here on the Earth that hasn't been, in any way explored. And we talked once about, are they using LIDAR? And there are miles in many places. There are miles of ice over the continent, but we know for a fact that there was a Nazi base underground here. We know for a fact that there's stuff in Antarctica that hasn't been taken a look at, hasn't been explored. I know there are ice stations there. I know that most governments have on the coastline of Antarctica. There are outposts that take temperature and snowfall and stuff like that. But to my knowledge, nobody's looking into things like that lake that is on the surface that nobody is supposed to fly over. How can there be a lake in the ice? But there is.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff going on that continent that we just have no idea. And with the pole shifts, I know for sure that Antarctic was, if you look at the Perry Reese map and a lot of other old maps, they have maps of what this continent looked like without any ice on it at all. So that at some point in time, it was a thriving piece of land. And,
right.
I am so, and if people want to research, the Perry Reese map is, that's a copy of an even older map and stuff like that. I don't know how old. It's one of the oldest maps around, but it does show this continent as being totally ice-free, and if it was by the equator, then it was almost tropical. So what could this, and there are rumors that it might even have been, something connected to Atlantis, and I don't know about that. That's just, I've heard somebody say it might have been Atlantis, but no research or anything has been done like that. But as you bring out all of these potential cities and civilization that was there, and the technology that would build roads and walled cities and stuff like that, think of the history that's there that we know nothing about. It's just mind-boggling.
Well, I'm with you. You mentioned earlier that you thought that perhaps Antarctica changed its climate because of a polar shift. And I think that's a real strong possibility. We did an article in 2016. It was about the Eskimos or the Inuit people, and their elders reported to our government about the changes that they were noticing. Not only are things melting, very rapidly, but they have noticed that the position of the stars in the sky, the position of the rising and setting sun have all been changing, noticeably changing. And these are wonderful observers for this kind of thing because they live out there where it's, basically flat and icy and white.
Mm-hmm.
So any little change, these people notice it. And, I mean, I don't know it anymore, but at one time I know there was a huge number of words that the Eskimos or the Inuit people had for different kinds of snow, depending on if it was big flakes, small flakes, icy, different, and we have one word. So they're really people we ought to listen to. So if they're seeing the sun changing its position in the sky, if they're seeing the stars change their position in the sky, they also have noticed that the direction of the dominant winds have changed. So, we are probably on the verge of another polar shift. It may not be as bad as it was when Antarctica totally switched because we've had pole changes. and they can be very gradual and not dramatic, but they also can be dramatic, and I certainly wouldn't know how to, guess what it's going to be, but something shifting.
Well, I know that there's a tomb in Egypt, and I should have been better prepared for this, but I didn't know we were going to go this direction. There's a tomb in Egypt in which the ceiling of the tomb is the night sky, but it's completely reversed. And the only way you can explain that reversal is that at the time that tomb was constructed and painted and decorated, the night sky was different, which would have, the sun didn't rise in the east and set in the west. It was the complete opposite, which would mean a pole shift of some sort. So, I mean, it can't be that they made a mistake and they just kept going because it was too late to start all over again. It was intentional. So the night sky is completely reversed in this tomb, which would say that at the time this tomb was constructed, the pole stars and the sun rose in the west and set in the east, so that something that would be a pole shift. So I think that the pole does move. It wasn't once at Hudson Bay, and then it was, over time it moved even to different places over in Europe. So that yeah, it does change slowly over time. The pole shift wobble is something that has happened. The North Pole has been in many different places over the centuries, but this tomb would suggest a complete pole shift, and I think that could have happened, and that would have put Antarctica into a better position, I think.
That would be my choice of why it once was tropical. And the fossils certainly prove that it once was, because you can see things that look like ferns and things that grow, only in tropical territories. And those were discovered by researchers from, I won't remember the university, but it's a university that was doing it. It seems like it was Wisconsin, perhaps. But they're, people trained in, documenting these kind of things. So it's not just, some Joe Blow deciding this was, a fossil. I mean, it's and I've seen the photos. We've posted the photos. It's very, very convincing. So the changes on this Earth have been remarkable.
Oh gosh, yeah, and the reality here too is something like this doesn't happen overnight. So where did these people go? I mean, they didn't suddenly, they didn't go to bed one night and the next day they were frozen and the snow happened. It had to be over time. So
but
you
can't rule that out either, because they have found, I don't know what kind of animals they were, but in the Arctic, in the northern hemisphere, they have found frozen animals that still have the grass in their mouth.
Yeah,
so
buttercups.
That was it.
Yeah.
And so that would indicate a very quick freeze.
That would. But you're looking here at a huge civilization. And this is just from what you can see now. I can't imagine what it's going to be like as ice melts more and more and more. Just how very extensive it might be. And the glimpse we're getting at a potential archaeological treasure trove of information is phenomenal. And wondering if this civilization as it is now, if they are responsible for the underground tunnels that we hear are there and things like that. If they went underground.
I know, you just don't know. There's just a whole lot of stuff to find out down there. And at least that's the one good thing from the climate getting warmer, is that these long buried civilizations are, popping up for us to see or get a glimpse of.
Well, also we're also discovering a lot of because the last time the ice all melted, it flooded a lot of towns and cities that are now underwater. And they're now discovering a lot of those cities and villages that are now off the coast of different areas. I'm thinking Spain in that area and in the Mediterranean for sure. There are towns and villages and cities that once were above water that have been below water for thousands of years now.
Yeah,
So,
early this year, I had done a whole lot of searching myself along the coastline and found ancient ruins, especially along the west coast of this country, along California. And if people go to the Global Links section of our website and scroll down to the very bottom of the 21 section, there will be at least 3 of those that you can pull up real easily. It feels like you're finding buried treasure when you start searching with Google Earth, and I would encourage people who have it and have a curiosity to start exploring, our own planet, because these things are popping up now. And if you get something really good, let me know.
Well, since you're talking about, it's totally off the topic, but that Mars rock you found with carved symbols on it.
That's pretty good too, isn't it? I get as big a kick out of finding these things as somebody goes out and finds a pile of gold. I think it's very exciting. And the rock that you're describing was found in a NASA video from the Perseverance rover, and it's about a 2.5-minute video segment, and it looks like a rock. I have a picture of it at one distance, and then I zoom in, and there are markings like a little bit like hieroglyphics, but not as more stylized. And I also noticed that there are thin parallel lines, almost like a grade school, what do they call it, writing sheet, where they have the lines where the kids would write between the lines. So there are these parallel lines, and then these etched-in carvings or lines are between these parallel lines. It definitely doesn't look like something that nature did.
No, it kind of, there are places where it almost looks like Olmec, that were just the straight lines and, symbols connected to the straight lines.
Right, and I didn't want to use the word hieroglyphics with it because those are more like little block illustrations or drawings. These are more like the quick writing of an old stenographer. I don't know if they still have those anymore, but where they would have these quick abbreviated symbols to mean something, and that's more the line of these. And again, we're talking about things that we posted recently, so you don't even have to go past the home page to find these listed on the right-hand side.
No, it just, when I saw them, I thought, holy mackerel, what has she dug up now? And, it really, I thought Sumerian, but not Sumerian. This feels more like Olmec, or, like you said, shorthand. I think it's phenomenal, and it does look like they're intentional lines. Again, nature doesn't make straight anything, and these are straight lines. There's no doubt about it.
And the width of the lines, it's like somebody took, they're evenly spaced, but they're also like the lines themselves are the same thin width.
Yeah, they are. They're evenly spaced, so that the only thing I could think of would be, sometimes a bulldozer when it's clearing land and things like that. I'm not thinking of bulldozer. I'm thinking of the other one with a shovel on it. That scraping could create those kind of marks. But again, I don't care. I don't know what created it, but it looks like it was not nature that created those lines. There's got to be a better term for it, but it wasn't nature. They were artificially created, and that's fascinating. Now, you found it just on that one rock, though, right? How did you zero in on one rock?
Now, this one I don't get any credit for, and I give the source of this total credit. And there's a YouTube channel out of India. It's called Technical Talk India. And I checked into it, and they just cover news about science, technology, and engineering. And since I didn't know anything about them, I went and looked it up, found out the city it was in India, found out it is a science and technological center, and there are 6 universities there and technical institutions. I even went and found out that there were 17 technical jobs listed with LinkedIn in this country. So it is a high-tech center. And again, this Technical Talk India specializes in science, technology, and engineering, and I found it on there. And you can still see the credit in the corner of the entire video for NASA. I can't read it on now, but JPL at Caltech. So we're talking about something where they were just looking real closely at a NASA video. So they found it. I didn't. I did find the walled city. I did find the walled city, but I did not find the rock on Mars.
Now, I don't have any idea as to how big this rock is. Is it like a mountain? Or is it like a, I mean...
I don't think it's like a mountain. I don't think it's like a mountain because it's something where the camera on the rover would have been able to focus on it. So I'm guessing it looks like a flat rock on the ground, and so the camera on the rover probably was looking down at it. So that it's not huge, I don't think. But
so we're looking like a dinner plate.
I didn't find this with Google, so I can't measure it. I have no way to compare it to anything.
I mean, if it's if it's a dinner plate size, it's one thing. If it's larger, it's another. It's like is it like a Nazca Plateau type thing, or is it like a dinner plate thing, or that would.
If I had to guess, I'd say it's bigger than a plate and not as big as a mountain.
Well, that leaves a lot of territory.
So, but like I said, there's no reference point, so there's no way I can measure it for you.
Yeah, that's just, can you pick it up? Is it bigger than a loaf of bread? I mean, gosh, that's fascinating. And your website is so phenomenal because it does cover so much material that is so fascinating that traditional news just doesn't pick up. You should have your own news channel.
That sounds like too much work. I enjoy finding the treasures. I don't enjoy running the corporation.
Okay. Well, that's a perfect outlet. But you kind of, I mean, I so am impressed by your authenticity that you will research things and make sure that they are valid and not just a hoax. And I trust anything you put up because I know that you've looked into it thoroughly, and in your mind, it's valid, and you're not easy to pull the wool over your eyes. So that I'm easy. I'll jump, but it just I know that you have checked out all of this material to the point where I trust all of your articles. When I'm looking into it, and you've got so much on the Mars rover on just this year's links. So if people are interested in, gosh, I'm looking at the postings, and you've got a lot of Mars rover stuff. You've got California's undersea lines. You've got tons of stuff here that people should talk more, and your website gives so many wonderful suggestions as to what if, and have you seen this, and look at this, and so that instead of going to the latest series and on TV and stuff like that, just starting to look into this and starting to Google all of this material, I mean, these ancient cities that are now melting out of the Antarctic ice, you begin to wonder, is time, are we coming into a time when finding this material and being able to investigate it and look at it is going to open something for society as a whole? Or, I don't believe anything happens, just randomly. It must be time for us to look into this, to see what's there, and to see if perhaps it holds a secret to something that happened on the Earth that maybe we should all be aware of, because the Earth we know for a fact is cyclical, and even though the cycles may be thousands or millions of years old, there's a map here, and to know where we are on the map as far as what cycle are we in a way prepares us for what's coming next globally.
I agree. Besides, I just get curious, don't you? You just want to know whether you're thinking in terms of what's next. It's like, this is unbelievable. I just want to know about it.
Well, absolutely.
And if people go to the website and just go to now I'm talking about the left side of the homepage. On the left side we have headings. So much of what we've discovered this year has been posted in the section called Global Links.
Yeah.
So people could just spend time in that section.
Well, I consider myself well-read, and yet it wasn't until this year that I became aware of the different shifts of the North Pole and how it could affect all of us. And then you take it even further into cosmically what's going on, and how at some point in time the Native American Indians were saying the sky is wobbling, which would give you an indication that there was a shift of some sort going on globally. And if there are shifts and changes globally, it's going to affect the seasons. It's going to affect all sorts of things. And I think it should be part of it, the education system. This is the planet we're on. This is what it does. This is part of its cycle. And if it's true to form, and it usually is, this is what could be coming. So let's prepare for it. It's kind of like Jacob and interpreting the dreams of the Pharaoh. 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. We have the ability to understand seasonally what is going to happen to this country and prepare for it. And it doesn't feel like anybody's paying a lot of attention, but the information is there to be used and utilized and for preparations to be made. I'll get off my
Absolutely. Yeah, your soapbox is almost over, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Anyhow, if anybody out there spends some time with Google Earth and discovers some other things in Antarctica or under the ocean or anywhere else, let me know. On the website under Editor's Corner you can find, under How to Report a Sighting. It's how you can get in touch. And so I would, if it's something good, I'll give somebody credit and we'll put it out there for the rest of the world to see.
Well, I think that, you've covered everything from Antarctic, melting to sunspots and UFOs and stuff like that. So, I mean, you cover just about everything. And I thank you so much for bringing your insights and everything to Nightlight so we can put it out there, because this is phenomenal and I'm so excited about it. I'm gonna try with Google Earth again and hopefully not end up in Utah, but it could be the fact that I'm doing it wrong too. So
well, I will check it myself and see if they're doing that to us.
Wouldn't surprise me. But thank you,
No, since
Mary,
I know they blurred it. I know they blurred it. That I found out for myself. The famous they.
Yes. So sometime I'm going to go to one of these big conventions, and when they have the name tag on it, I'm just going to put they, and let people. So you're who? I'm they. I'm who they're talking about when they say they. Okay, I could probably get in trouble for that one. But I want to thank you. I want to tell everybody to check out her website. It's skyshipsovercashiers.com, and it's a fabulous website. I go on it regularly and get lost, and like I said, have a snack and tissues with you when you go, because you're not going to be able to get up and move for quite a while. So and also Mary has written 4 amazing books. My favorite is Bigfoot Beyond the Footprints, but the other 3 books are good too. I've read all 4 of them, and they're coffee table books. You can read them in a day, and I promise you the text and the picture, and they have lots and lots of pictures, so you can do it with a child, and they can look at the pictures and you can read the graphics. They're wonderful, wonderful books, and they're thoroughly investigated, and I highly recommend them. And this is from someone who reads a hell of a lot. So thank you again. Do you want to throw anything else out there?
No, that'll do it. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, you are a delight as always. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you next month.
All righty. Take care.
Bye-bye now. Thank you, everybody. This is going to be up on YouTube. Please check it out. And also take a look at what else is up there. If you like what you see, please subscribe. That's how we know you're listening. And it doesn't cost anything, and it makes us feel better to know that you're there. So good night, everyone, and check us out. We'll be back Monday and Tuesday of next week. And sometimes there's even a surprise in there someplace, so you never know. Just check out barbaradelong.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll be able to see what show is next, and if it tickles your fancy, please tune in. Good night, everybody.